Across labs and boardrooms, one consensus is loud. AI will upend the world. DeepMind's Demis Hassabis says there is a 50% chance of AGI by 2030. And this pace raises a darker issue. Anthropic's Dario Amodi puts catastrophic risk near 25%. The arms race has been made public. In September, the White House convened the richest tech leaders to push US AI dominance and secure investment pledges. The die was cast. Representatives of America's frontier labs were present. Meanwhile, across the world, the CCP tightened its control over China's labs and models, understanding the importance of this technology. These competitors are racing towards possession of the most powerful technology ever created, the genesis of a new form of life. The cards are on the table. Whoever wins the race for superintelligence sets the rules of the world. The whole world is talking about superintelligence, but what exactly is it? The philosopher Nick Bostrom defines it as
any intellect that greatly exceeds the cognitive performance of humans in virtually all domains of interest.
One definitive characteristic can be agreed upon. It will completely upend the world and what it means to be human. In Dario Amodi's Machines of Loving Grace, he references revolutions in biological progress, the eradication of mental illness, and even the doubling of the human lifespan as realistic possibilities stemming from AI in the next few decades. Silicon Valley presents these developments as realistic. Meanwhile, the world looks on with a mix of skepticism, terror, and cautious excitement. OpenAI's Sam Altman puts the development of superintelligence around 2028. Elon Musk puts it at 2029, whereas the futurist Ray Kurzweil puts the ensuing singularity at 2045. But before superintelligence, we must first reach Artificial General Intelligence, or the creation of a human-level general intelligence. This feat is cited by Hassabis as a 50% possibility by 2030. So, these timelines between AGI and ASI are often mixed, inconsistent, and pure guesswork. This has led the entire world to question whether this is realistic. Is there an AI bubble that's about to pop? Are these timelines even legitimate, or just an excessively aggressive marketing campaign with this man as its instigator? Despite the public's discontent, America's 5 frontier AI leaders are betting everything on superintelligence, propping up the flailing US economy in the process. The current discourse presents 2 scenarios in which the fabric of society will be rearranged in just a few years. Number 1, the bubble pops. The technology just isn't there yet. The US stock market crashes under the weight of this revelation, leading to mass layoffs, unemployment, and stagnant growth. Or number 2, the bubble holds. The next generations of frontier models are groundbreaking. Predictions on AGI and superintelligence hold to be true. The world, however, is completely upended, forced to grapple with the arrival of a superintelligent species. No one truly knows the real trajectory. The potential for AGI's recursive self-development makes the velocity of iterations for the leading company completely unparalleled, creating a gap between them and their competition. With accelerated self-development, the first to secure AGI could reasonably become the technological hegemon of their country, but also the world. So not reaching AGI and then superintelligence represents an existential threat to both the Chinese and American tech companies, as well as the countries themselves. In their logic, if they fall behind, if they miss the train, they are dashed out into the wilderness forever. We can identify 6 major players in the race for superintelligence. They are OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Anthropic, Meta, xAI, and the Chinese labs and firms that answer to the CCP. DeepMind is referred to as the Manhattan Project for Artificial Intelligence, founded in 2010 by Demis Hassabis. His mission was to solve intelligence, then use it to solve everything else. That everything else, to him, meant frontier science, to make breakthroughs in healthcare, physics, and space travel. They started training AI with 8-bit Atari games, culminating in their AlphaGo model beating Go champion Lee Sedol. On the other side of the world, Sam Altman and Elon Musk helped found OpenAI as a non-profit, worried about AI falling into the wrong hands. Its founding mission was cited as the following:
to ensure that artificial general intelligence, by which we mean highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work, benefits all of humanity.
The two companies' seemingly well-meaning genesis would meet a bitter reality in 2014 and 2019 respectively, when DeepMind was bought by Google and OpenAI became entangled deeply with Microsoft. OpenAI moved from a non-profit model to a capped profit, while DeepMind became pivotal to Google's future profitability. Though the two companies had become competitors, the 2010s featured a great deal of cross-pollination between the two labs. Google's paper, "Attention is All You Need," was instrumental in the creation of OpenAI's GPT-1 and GPT-2. It was OpenAI's November 2022 public release of ChatGPT, however, that shocked the world. OpenAI had created a consumer product capable of nuanced and personalized conversation. It sent Google into panic mode, forced to bring back its founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Its answer to ChatGPT, Bard, fell short of expectations. The release of OpenAI's GPT-4 further enhanced the gap. Despite this, Google pressed on. Gemini 1's release in late 2023 delivered the first competitive peer, closing this gap. By early 2026, the landscape has transformed into a competitive sprint between the two behemoths, neck and neck. Most recently, GPT 5.4 and Gemini 3.1 compete for consumers' attention, with capabilities dividing opinion. While ChatGPT still holds the majority of the consumer market share, Gemini 3's impressive performance is poaching customers, causing Altman to worry. A second front in the American race has also opened. Former OpenAI employees, Daniela and Dario Amodi, left due to disillusionment with the company's leadership. They founded Anthropic as a public benefit corporation, legally obligated to act in the societal good with a safety-first policy. It is widely discussed as the safest and most responsible AI company. Their flagship model, Claude, is a significant contender in the AI race. In March 2024, Claude 3 was released, closing the gap between Anthropic and the two behemoths. Over time, the coding community came to see Claude as the greatest AI for their workflows, and by May 2025, the release of Claude 4 closed the gap further in benchmarks and public consensus. Zuckerberg is another interesting player in the AI race. He made headlines trying to pivot his company, Facebook, towards the virtual reality industry, rebranding it to Meta. But this bet did not pay off. Consumers were left confused, dissatisfied, and a little frightened about what Meta had put forward for virtual reality. OpenAI's watershed moment reverberated into Meta's decision-making as well. Its underinvestment in LLMs had become an existential threat. Zuckerberg pivoted the company from a full focus on VR to AI as dual major priorities. Interestingly, contrary to his competitors, Meta would produce open weight models. The models' weights would be publicly accessible for people to use, study, fine-tune, and integrate. This difference created a new front, attracting a whole community of developers, captured by the local Llama subreddit. April 2025 saw the release of Llama 4. It was an underwhelming iteration. In response, Meta scrambled to improve its standing, reorganizing its Frontiers lab and cutting around 600 roles in October. The status of the exact developmental progress under this new direction is unknown. Elon has also been a vital player for over a decade now. Years after leaving OpenAI in 2018, Musk envisioned his chatbot as a maximally truth-seeking alternative, as a reaction to what he deemed as woke or politically correct competitors. His strategy was speed and raw power. He constructed the Colossus supercomputer in Memphis, Tennessee, the world's largest single AI training cluster, in just 122 days. His chatbot, Grok, hasn't been without controversy, however. May 2025 saw the chatbot engage in discussions promoting conspiracy theories and denying certain historical atrocities. By early July, Grok had even started referring to itself using the name of a certain infamous World War II dictator. Despite these troubling responses, the bot's breakneck development has continued. China is another interesting player in the race for AI. To understand China's sprint for superintelligence, you have to understand their century of humiliation. Their 1842 loss to Britain in the First Opium War put China on a path of foreign intervention, subjugation, territorial losses, and technological stagnation up until 1945. As the world emerged from the deadly Second World War, China was elevated to that of a great power status, just below that of the Soviet Union and the United States. Remedying the missed century, however, is of significant cultural value to the Chinese. Having missed both the British industrial and the American digital revolutions, the CCP views AI as a rightful path for its mission of national rejuvenation. There are 11 frontier labs and tech giants operating in China. They can be separated into what the state calls the Six Tigers. They are Zippu, Bishwan, Moonshot, Minimax, 01 AI, and StepFun. as well as the four dragons. They are Alibaba, ByteDance, Tencent, and Baidu. The six tigers are more frontier startup labs, while the four dragons are the biggest tech giants operating within China. The hedge fund-backed DeepSeek has also emerged as a significant contender. These entities, however, differ massively from the American Five in autonomy, being heavily regulated by the CCP. In fact, public investment in and infrastructure for AI is as instrumental for the country's sector as the firms themselves. October 2023 saw the Biden administration tighten the export controls of Nvidia's cutting-edge Chinese variant A800 and H800 chips. This was intended to slow their progress. China, in turn, accelerated its interest in the production of domestic GPUs and making models' architectures more efficient. Like game developers stretch the limitations of legacy games consoles as they near the end of their run, China's AI labs have become increasingly competent at getting the most out of dated American technology. In January 2025, China stunned the world. The release of DeepSeek R1 was a landmark moment, comparable to the release of ChatGPT. It demonstrated reasoning capabilities of frontier American models, but was trained at a fraction of the cost of GPT-4. It also displayed a chain of thought that users could actually see, whereas the American models hid that feature from the UI. The American Five was stunned. President Trump referred to it as a wake-up call that proved that the US must stay ahead. The American AI landscape has transformed. DeepMind, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, and xAI. These labs have released numerous models, each with more abilities. To name some, multimodality, deep research, and reasoning capabilities. For years now, they have been neck and neck. Taiwan has also proven to be an important facet in the geopolitical race, serving as the Silicon Shield for the US. The Taiwanese company TSMC manufactures 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors and fuels Nvidia's lead. Without Taiwan, AI dominance becomes increasingly difficult for the United States. It's obvious then why Xi Jinping has set his sights on recapturing this splintered island during his premiership. And also, ideological splits remain between all of the major players. The safety-first constitutional AI of Anthropic, the maximally truth-seeking mission of Musk, the open-weight proliferation of Meta, the corporate interests of the Microsoft and Google empires, and the technocratic vision of the CCP. No matter the ethics, one of these players is sure to win this race for superintelligence, and wield an immense power that we cannot yet fully understand. So who will win? It's a multifaceted race. There isn't just one parameter for winning, there are multiple. If being in the lead can be defined as possessing the most advanced LLMs with the best capabilities, the picture becomes murky. Each American frontier lab has released 4 or 5 generations of models. With each new release, leadership rotates depending on the benchmarks and use case. People tend to lament the death of the frontrunner's competitor until a new model is released, closing the gap. In this respect, OpenAI, DeepMind, Anthropic, and xAI's proprietary models can be deemed as relatively neck and neck, give or take the space of a few months. After the underwhelming release of Llama 4, Meta sits well below these 4. And benchmarks, while flawed, present this developmental landscape. Gemini 3.1 Pro and GPT 5.4 are neck and neck in Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, pulling from an array of benchmarks. Meanwhile, the max versions of Claude Opus and Claude Sonnet 4.6 trail by less than 10 points. The lead that OpenAI and Google possess over their competitors is not enormous, nor is it permanent. The rapid development and performance capabilities of China's open-weight models, GLM-5 and Minimax M2.7, exhibit a closing gap between the American and Chinese capabilities. To put the positions of each competitor in AA's intelligence index into perspective, Llama 4 Maverick currently sits in this position. Each of them are betting entirely, or at least primarily, on the scaling of LLMs for winning this race. But what are the other routes? As Hassabis stated in his keynote speech to Axios, there are other paths to AGI beyond LLM scaling. Meta's former AI chief, Yan LeCun, has envisioned other forms of models as the true stepping stone to AGI. In LeCun's view, scaling LLMs is a dead end. So what are the alternatives? Well, imagine a large language model's development as the library approach. LLMs are like a person who has read every book in a library, but has never left the room. They can predict that dropping a glass will result in hundreds of shatters on the floor, because they've seen that text pattern a billion times. But they do not truly understand gravity, motion, or fragility in the same way as a human being. World models, or physics models, attempt to learn the physics of reality. If a world model sees that same glass fall, it doesn't just predict the word shatter, but predicts the visual representation of the glass hitting the floor, like a human naturally would. Neurosymbolic AI also presents a promising alternative path as well, giving AI a logic-based rule system for structured reasoning, and therefore potentially mitigating hallucinatory errors that the modern LLMs face due to their probabilistic nature. If these other routes, as Hassabis says, are a possible path to AGI, who has and who hasn't invested in them? Well, Anthropic, OpenAI, and xAI seem to be the most behind, with the least publicly diversified model portfolios beyond foundational model scaling. Meta and Google have invested a great deal in world models and neurosymbolic systems respectively, improving their standing. Meta's JEEPA project and Google's AlphaGeometry prove this. China has also made strides here. There is significant state-backed research into spiking neural networks and neuromorphic computing. The 2019 development of the Tianjin chip, designed to mimic the human brain's architecture, is a prime example. But models and future models aren't the only predictor of who's winning the race. What if winning means having the fuel to push furthest to superintelligence? To achieve AGI, these frontier labs argue that LLMs have to be scaled up. Scaling is impossible without infrastructure and investment. For this, we can look at the monetary spend of each company, side by side, both already invested and dedicated. In this respect, OpenAI and Meta are clear winners, dedicating between 600 and 700 billion and 600 billion respectively. But long-term expectations of spending might not reach fruition. What about this year? While this specific figure is complicated when it comes to OpenAI, xAI and Anthropic, Google and Meta's 2026 capital expenditure has been extensively documented. Google's 2026 figure is expected to sit at 175 to 185 billion, and Meta's at 115 to 135 billion. To put this into perspective, Google will spend more than Iceland, Nepal, Latvia and Jamaica's 2026 predicted GDPs combined on their infrastructure this year. What about China? The monetary spending is high, albeit less significant. In 2025 alone, the Bank of America projects China's AI capital expenditure at $84 billion to $98 billion. But where exactly is this money going? To reach AGI first, infrastructure is key. LLMs need compute. They need vast data centers. In terms of aspirations for AI data center mega projects, money is translating into capacity. Meta's Prometheus and Hyperion, as well as Google's globalized AI hypercomputer and OpenAI's Stargate, are clear leaders in aspirational capacity. However, the deployment speed of Elon's Colossus One megacluster was impressive, being built in just 122 days. We can compare this to the traditional hyperscale buildouts, typically taking between months to years to construct. The ownership model is another important variable. While OpenAI, Anthropic and Chinese labs have partial to no ownership of their physical infrastructure, Meta, Google and xAI possess full ownership. Anthropic and China face the steepest uphill battles in this regard. The former is beholden to the infrastructure whims of its cloud providers, most notably Amazon, while the latter must expend massive energy and resources to compensate for a chronic lack of cutting-edge hardware. Google has another advantage in its homegrown tensor processing units, or TPUs. These specific chips allow Google to bypass the Nvidia tax margins that its competitors have to pay for GPUs, as well as optimize its hardware for Gemini and other DeepMind models. But these aren't the only variables needed to win. What if winning means being everywhere? This is the physical actualization of these models, their dissemination and integration into our daily lives. Firstly, each of the American companies charges subscription for unlimited and pro versions of their models, as well as an API for developers. This alone hasn't proved effective in drawing American frontier labs out of their financial holes. OpenAI is the worst example. In the first half of 2025 alone, it was at a net loss of $13.5 billion, causing insiders to worry about whether there is a cohesive plan to turn OpenAI into a viable, profitable business. To remedy their profitability issue, OpenAI has endeavored to integrate ads into ChatGPT. Their competitor, Anthropic, capitalized on this move by calling it out in a Super Bowl ad, separating themselves from this controversial practice. If profitability is a problem, with reaching AGI first as one half of the potential remedy, integration and dissemination can be described as the other half. With consumer products, each lab can create an effective, profitable business model that doesn't bleed the pockets of investors. So, how are all the players doing on this front? OpenAI is trying to create what insiders refer to as the iPhone of AI, a wearable device that you can talk to, interact with, and interacts with the world. Gemini is also embedded in search and Google products. They've also invested in autonomy through the robo-taxi company Waymo and investing also in robotics. Recently, Apple has endeavored to revamp Siri using Gemini. This is of course a turn from their previous integration of ChatGPT into Siri, revealing another blow to OpenAI. While Anthropic holds a significant share of the API market, becoming the intelligence for Alexa Plus. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg is betting on wearable technology, like the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, as the future of consumer products. Also, AI avatars are available in their social media services, which has drawn a lot of controversy. XAI is building a vertical monopoly, integrating Grok into the Tesla and Optimus fleets, as well as X's social media feed. Meanwhile, China is leveraging its manufacturing dominance, turning AI into a national industrial brain to manage its coal mines, railways, and power grids. It has also made impressive strides in robotics and robotaxis. The CCP is actively striving to make the state, the machine, and the citizen digitally inseparable by leveraging its position as the world's factory. Analysts also argue that China's Digital Silk Road initiative aims to export this AI surveillance infrastructure to developing nations, primarily in the global south. OpenAI's current consumer market share in traffic is still dominant, although Google, Anthropic, and Perplexity are bleeding their customer base with higher quarterly growth, causing Open to launch a code red within the company. This problem becomes even more concerning, as OpenAI is projected to need a consumer base of 3 billion by 2030 to reach profitability. While it currently sits at an estimated 900 million, the bleeding from their alternatives might sour OpenAI's chances of reaching this number. Worrying also is the implication of comparing this goal to the estimated world population in 2030, projected to sit around 8.5 billion. So OpenAI are projected to need a consumer base of 35% of the world's population to reach profitability. This feat is going to be very difficult. And the assault on their current market hegemony is coming from another front as well. China now dominates the open weight market, with Chinese models now making up 30% of total global AI usage. In fact, Eastern usage of American proprietary models has seen a breakneck decline in recent years. Considering the 3 billion figure isn't just going to come from the 1.2 billion citizens of the West, the loss of an Eastern consumer base is worrying for OpenAI. So across all these variables, current and future capabilities, capital and infrastructure, dissemination, consumer products, and market share, who is winning? At the moment, the answer is clearly Google. They have the most holistic power in all categories. The frontier model in Gemini 3, extensive alternative model research, vast self-owned infrastructure, embeddedness into consumer products, and a vast ability to disseminate their models, as well as a lack of over-leveraging and the financial pressures of OpenAI. But as has been made clear, this race is still neck and neck. The breakneck spending of OpenAI and Meta may secure them the lead. China's state funding and rapid speed of development and dissemination may also secure them the lead. If Anthropic are able to scale Claude to an unheard of ability, they could claim victory. Additionally, if the bubble pops, those that overspent in the last few years might be in deep trouble, allowing their more frugal competitors to take the lead. Unfortunately, only time will tell. Whoever wins, a few things are certain. The next 10 years will exhibit unprecedented societal change, at a rate completely unheard of. Despite hopeful predictions of UBI, unemployment is bound to skyrocket, at a rate governments won't be able to properly manage. Whilst the world will welcome developments in health, longevity, space travel and poverty, AGI and superintelligence could result at best the redefining of what it means to be human, and at worst, the extinction of the human race. This video tells a story of players in a zero-sum game who face an existential risk for their companies if they do not win. This, in turn, creates a real existential risk for the rest of humanity. This is the deadly race for superintelligence, and we are yet to know who will rule the new world it creates.